Start again. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Audit Committee. Just a few notes. The public are welcome to attend, but are not able to take part in the debate. The proceedings will be live streamed and there'll be a recording available afterwards. There is no fire alarm drill notified to me for this evening. If a fire alarm does operate, please leave in an orderly manner through the side routes at either side of the auditorium and assemble outside the Wetherspoon Public House. Now, I'd like to ask the officers to introduce themselves, starting far right and working towards me, please.
Hi, sorry, Kirsten Espley, Corporate Accountant.
Ween Burton, Chief Internal Auditor.
And Jacqueline Case, Performance Management Officer.
Sam Wilson, Head of Finance and Performance.
And Dominic, Director of Resources.
And Liz Fennick, Democratic Services Officer.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for absence.
So we've received apologies from Councillor Tony Frankland.
And we do expect Councillor Hogburn to arrive within the next few minutes. But we'll carry on from there. Have you all read the minutes of the meeting? Do you agree their content? Okay, I'll take that as agreed, and I'll be able to sign those off then. Declarations of members' interest. Just a little note which that the declarations of interest must be made at each meeting. It can't be carried over. So if you've made it before, you've got to make it again.
I know, I'll just remind myself every time. So West Sussex County Council, member of West Sussex County Council Audit Committee, member of West Sussex Pension and Treasury Panels.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Hogburn is just arriving. He just waits. Have you got any declaration of interest? No, sir. Okay, thank you. Right, item 4, which is announcements. Members will note that item 10 on the agenda relating to risk management contains an exempt section. Appendix B on pages 172 to 173 of the private agenda pack. The Director of Resources will present his report on this item, which can be discussed. Should further information need to be discussed on the exempt session, I will then propose we go into an exempt session to discuss Appendix B. So members of the public will be asked to leave, if any present, and a live stream recording will be paused at that time. At the end of the discussion in relation to the exempt item, we'll then go back into public session and finalise the noting of that agenda item. I would like to avoid, if possible, to go into the exempt session because the one item there is an improving situation, and having had further discussions with people, it will probably drop off the the risk register before the next meeting. So if we can avoid it, but if a member wants to go into the exempt session, we will therefore go into it. Okay. Agenda 5, item 5, presentation on the annual report 2024-25 from external audit. And we have on the screens Sonny Gill. Good evening, Sonny.
Evening.
Have you got a report you can give to us?
Yes, so I'll just take you through the report within the pack. So if you turn to page 13 of your pack, at the November 25 Audit Committee, we presented our audit results report, which set out our audit scope, key risks identified, and our detailed findings. What you find in front of you today is our auditor's annual report, which summarises the key findings and conclusions for the 24-25 audit from the audit results report, which was presented to the November 25 Audit Committee, together with a subsequent updated audit results report. It also includes our value for money commentary and confirmation of the financial statements opinion. If I can ask you to turn to page 18 of your pack. At the November Audit Committee meeting, we stated that subject to the completion of outstanding procedures, we anticipated issuing a disclaimer audit opinion on the Council's 24-25 financial statements. Since then, those outstanding procedures have been completed. We have issued a disclaimer audit opinion on the 24-25 financial statements on 17th of December 2025, which was ahead of the backstop date of 27th February 2026. In addition, there were no matters to report by exception in respect of the Council's value for money arrangements. Both of these represent positive outcomes for the Council in the context of the current local government audit environment. We also confirmed that we did not use any of our additional audit powers. The remainder of the report summarises our key findings, assessments, and the value for money commentary, which I do not propose to take the committee through in detail today. However, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, members, any questions? Councillor Dennis? Or Councillor Cornfield? Sorry.
Yeah, it's probably one for Dom, actually. Just on page 25, there was some requires improvement steps on there. Are there any additional actions you're looking to take in response to that? I know we discussed some of these in November's meeting. Or Sam?
That's okay. Yes, so we have gone through them internally, and we're addressing all of the points, if not addressed them already. Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Dennis? Can I just...
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. If I go to,
Sorry, Councillor Dennis,
oh, so sorry.
Director of Resources would like to...
I was just going to add to that. You know, well, obviously the teams are talking, communicating. They've done their sort of wash-up sessions as well, and liaising with the auditors. So from my perspective, you know, they are making progress there. I think what will also help the team this year is that they'll have a little bit more time in the run-up to getting everything ready, because the previous audit, or the audit that's just happened, has finished earlier than it did last time round. So that extra bit of time there will hopefully iron out some of the creases in there as well.
Councillor Dennis.
Yes, I've got two really. One for Dom and one for the auditor. The first one for Dominic, page 12, is around the car parks, which were down valued. In light of what we're seeing with NCP, do we think there may be further adjustments to the car parks at some stage?
I suppose I don't know. NCP, of course, is a slightly different case, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I know
Because
it
they
is,
had
yeah.
leases and that they couldn't get out of. I think from the parking income side of things, you know, parking income has remained pretty healthy in Horsham. So I wouldn't expect that sort of relationship with the income to affect the value of it. So really, probably not. But given all the world events that are happening at the moment, there are a number of factors that
I just thought
will
I'd
feed in.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Just wanted to reassure more than anything. And if I go then back to page 7, and this is where you talk about local government reorganisation, and you talk about guidance issued in July 25, where you it is the third paragraph up from the bottom of the page, where you talk about decisions made by the council prior to reorganisation regarding ongoing service delivery, and the medium-term financial strategy should focus on providing value for money for taxpayers and avoid limiting future decisions or sustainability of new councils. I assume that was guidance rather than anything else. It was just guidance. Yeah.
Sammy, can you come back?
Did you have mind to that as you looked through you did the audit?
So I think that one's best placed to Director of Resources to answer that one.
Okay.
Struggling with the page number there. You quoted a page number that's not
Page number
on my pack.
It's very faded. Yes, 7.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. I printed it out separately.
Ah.
So sorry.
No worries. Oh, page 18, sorry, yes. Yes. So
Third paragraph up.
I found it. Thank you. Yes. So it is guidance, isn't it? And in this period, we're not. What's the best phrase to use? We're not forced to do this. It's a direction, isn't it, from government that we prepare. I think we are working with our other authorities, aren't we, on how to do that. We're not, until we know exactly what it's looking like, of course, we're not in a position to go gung-ho and only focus on that. I think we will have to, won't we, for the next few months, try and focus on both. Increasingly, it will turn to local government reorganisation, won't it? And the focus needs to be on the future of authority. However, we can't take our eye off either at any one time. So we will always be concentrating on value for money for Horsham District Council while Horsham District Council exists. We have had so far, haven't we, money from government to do the work that we've done. We've spent, or we are spending that money. We will reach the point, won't we, where we will need to use the pooled funds that West Sussex have from the business rates pool, and that will fund what we do next. And hopefully at that point we'll also know exactly what we're aiming for at the same time. That's probably not a very coherent answer. It might not have answered your question.
It's sort of. It's fine for that.
Okay. Right, thank you. Any other members who'd like to pose a question? Okay. I have just one issue. I've got a copy of the scale fee variation from the auditors, which is quite substantial, 55,000 odd pounds. I believe that the Director of Resources is going to pass this over to the PSAA for their sort of determination. So hopefully that figure will go down. And this is to do with additional work was taken in response to IAS 19 pension balances, additional work to respond to the identified risk in respect of the new IFRS 16 standard, additional work undertaken to respond to identified valuation risk in respect of property, plant and equipment and investment property, and additional work in respect to a prior period adjustment relating to car park valuation, additional work to respond to identified risk in respect to migration to new cash receipting system, and there's a few minor items as well. So I'm not doubting that it's a fair figure, but I think it needs to be looked at, and I think by it going to the PSAA, they'll give their determination on that. Is that correct, Tom?
Well, yes, it is. So the auditor writes to PSAA and suggests a figure. PSAA will ask me for my opinion on whether I think some of that is reasonable. Of course, there are areas where the auditor has had to do extra work. We're obviously building back the assurance as well, aren't we, at the same time? My personal view is I think that additional fee is a little bit heavy. I will be, writing to PSAA to give my opinion on that, and PSAA will make a decision on it. So we should expect some additional fee, of course. I'm hoping that it won't be quite as high as that number that's been put forward, but it may well be. In which case, the PSAA decision is final, and we have to pay it.
Any other member comments? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sonny, for your attendance. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, so we now move on to agenda item 6, the internal audit quarterly update report. If I could call on the Chief Internal Auditor to give us a report, please.
Thank you. So yes, the purpose of this report is to summarise all of the work that was completed during the second quarter, so up to beginning of January this year, very early January, during which we complete or finalise rather 6 audit reports, which are set out in a summary for you in the appendix. What you'll see there are two key financials in there. So the general ledger and the capital programme. So we try to alternate years. Both had positive assurance opinions. We also carried out 2 follow-ups, and that is a really good news story, if you like. So alcohol licensing, which previously received partial assurance, and also jumping down a bit to the housing allocations follow-up, which previously had partial assurance, but both have now managed to achieve substantial assurance. So they've implemented all of the actions that were agreed, and we're satisfied with the risk management controls in place now. You will note building security was one of the audits that actually received partial assurance. We did agree several, couple of high priority and some other actions with them. Just to update you, the high priority actions have now been implemented because we track those to completion. And I believe actually all of the medium priority actions have also been implemented. But to make extra sure, then we will also include a follow-up audit of this area in the coming year's plan, just to make sure all of the controls are operating as expected. Moving on to our performance, on the sort of last table of KPIs there, the nature of an audit plan is it doesn't fit neatly with quarters, so we tend to fluctuate between meeting the target of completion to date and not throughout the year. So you can see we were slightly short at the end of Q3. It's sort of it's a fairly normal pattern because of Christmas, but I'm confident that we can still meet the overall target of 90% by the end of this financial year. And that would explain why the number of days used is 3 quarters, but the number of audits delivered is not. And that's because those audits will be nearing their draft report, so they're just not counted yet as a completed audit. So hopefully that makes sense, but I'm happy to explain further if needed. I wasn't going to say anything else about this report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Emery?
Thank you, Chairman. Being aware of the fact that this is a meeting that is live streamed, I will be circumspect in my comments. It is obvious to members that there is an issue of security at the moment in respect to the building, and therefore I would appreciate your assurances that that is being looked at by the Audit Committee and will be addressed shortly.
Yes, and this is, you will see on the next item, you'll see it is included as a follow-up audit for the coming year, so we'll address that.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennis?
Can I just say that that's been an issue for quite some time now? I'm just amazed. It was a problem the last time I was here, so I'm really surprised it's not been resolved.
Yeah, I've been around the world and it's still got the same problem.
Just one more thing on security, Chair. I had the misfortune to lose my badge after being here about a week. I found it again about a month later after I'd ordered a new one, and both still work. So I would have thought that's another security issue that if I'd reported a badge lost or stolen, it actually should have been cancelled, and the fact it both work. So I think that if councillors were looking at security in detail, there would be a few additional items to look at.
Did you notify the correct department that it was lost?
Committee Services, I believe, ordered me a new one. Who is responsible for cancelling the old one, I'm unclear on, but I will follow up on it.
I thought they used that mission.
I will also say that I've had a pre-meeting with Reem, the internal auditor, chief internal auditor, before this meeting, just to establish independence and that the resourcing requirements are met, and she's satisfied to move forward. So I just want to add that as a note. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Emery?
Sorry, Chairman, this isn't a particular. Just to inform you, I've been notified by Councillor Brooks that due to an emergency, he's unable to attend this evening's and asked me to pass on his apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Dave Cornfield?
Sorry, just a quick one. Any emerging issues from the in-progress audit? Any high rate or trending high rated items that we need to be concerned about?
So I'm reluctant to give full details on them because they are there are
Sure.
2 draft reports that are currently with officers for discussion. Both have identified some higher priority areas, but because they're currently in draft, it's subject to change, and so I wouldn't want to say anything at this meeting, but you'll receive an update at the next audit committee.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, members? No? Okay. Thank you for your report, Liam, and thank you for coming along and giving it personally. Okay, we can now move on to agenda item 7, sorry. This is the internal audit strategy and annual plan for 2026-2027. And again, I would ask Liam to give us a report, please.
Thank you. So this is part of our requirements under the Global Internal Audit Standards to publish and agree an annual audit plan, strategy and charter. So all three are presented in the pack today. The internal audit strategy, which starts on page 57, sets out essentially how we plan to deliver our work, how we prioritise work, what performance measures that we can be held accountable to. It sets out how we focus our approach for different audits. And we do, as agreed with management and as a good practice, it's focused on the areas with the highest risk of achievement to the council's objectives. Supporting that, and the bit that I think most people are more interested in, is the annual plan, which starts on page 65, and this sets out all of the audits that we intend to complete during 26-27. This has been done in consultation with all of the heads of service and senior management across the council. We also carry out our own risk assessment of things that we know that are happening globally, other councils, all that sort of thing. It all feeds in. And the plan, I do want to mention, it is flexible, especially with LGR devolution on the horizon. So we set out this plan, we include some contingency time if we need to add anything to the plan, but we also allow for the fact that some of those audits may not be as relevant in effectively 12 months' time from now. Other issues may have emerged, we may replace things, and that's where in the previous report I've just presented, you'll get updates on any changes to the audit plan. But it's a range of audits across all of the directorates and many of the services of the council. Finally, the charter on page 69 starts on page 69. Again, this is a good practice item under the Global Internal Audit Standards. It sets out, again, how we approach audit, what our rights of access, I was going to say, but it's the internal audit mandate is the correct term there. This charter actually hasn't changed. I presented it to this committee in September, where it had some more changes because we were updating it to reflect the new Global Internal Audit Standards, which replaced the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. Even then, there weren't any significant changes. A lot of it was just the terminology, being clearer on the reporting lines, and that sort of thing. So there are actually no changes to this charter since you last approved it in September, other than the date at the bottom. But it's good practice for us to present that with the strategy and the plan, which is why I'm presenting it for approval today. Happy to take any questions.
Independent member Dave Cornfield.
Thank you for the update. You've covered off some of my questions already, which is great. Yeah. Just level of confidence really that everything can get done in the year. So 400 hours to play with, 20 audits plus maybe a follow-up. There's quite a lot to get done in 20 hours audit or so. Level of confidence to get it all done?
Yes, I would also say I'm very confident because I'm always confident in my team. So 400 days, just to clarify, not hours. That would be very scary if it was 400 hours.
That would be really efficient.
Yeah, no, we're not that efficient. I'm sure AI will take over at some point. But no, for now, 400 days. So when we draft the plan, we actually do set out days for each audit. And there are a couple that have moved into the reserve list because they just won't fit in that initial 400 days. Depending on how things go, we may be able to bring extra in, but this is why we also keep that contingency in case any audits overrun. That's that flexibility. So yeah, we are contracted to deliver 400 days. We will make sure that we deliver 400 days and you'll receive the reports on that as well.
Great. And I guess if worse comes to worse, would there be any audits that you might deprioritise from that initial list?
There potentially could be in the year, and that's where, so we have regular liaisons, as we call it, with managers just to make sure that we're still looking at the right risks. There are things that sometimes just drop down the priority list, other things emerge, in which case we'll respond accordingly.
Right, thank you.
Any further questions, members? Councillor Hogburn.
Thank you, Chair. I always think it's funny, and I guess from my analytical brain, I always think that we should be focusing on the things that have the biggest cash investment or the biggest risk or the biggest financial. And obviously, I can see there is a lot of financial things being scrutinised. So that's but obviously your wording was softer around the annual plan. Page 66 talks about community asset transfers, and I think this may or may not be a big thing going into local government. And I've still got a slight hang up as to whether we're doing the right thing by the taxpayer in some of these possible community asset transfers, and it's something I'd very much like to keep an eye on and keep live. I did hear a very good argument that actually, if you're just passing one government body passing an asset to another government body, well, it's still staying in the public purse, and perhaps we shouldn't be quite so worried. So I thought that was a reasonable answer. But on the other hand, there are some things that are potentially valued at millions that may be transferred over. So I'm very keen that is given a adequate scrutiny as we go forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? I did suggest one particular audit that could be considered for the future, which is in regards to the Equality Act and specifically the Public Service Equality Duty as required under the Equality Act 2010, and maybe that will be probably for next year now, but I think it's an issue that may well be coming up soon. Thank you. As there's no further questions, we're required to approve the following. Firstly, the internal audit strategy, which is in Annex A. 2, the internal audit plan, Appendix A. And 3, the internal audit charter, Appendix B. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, unanimous. Okay, so thank you once again, Reen, for your attendance and your help. Thank you. So we move to item 8, which is an internal audit review of revenues and benefits. And this is completed by Milton Keynes internal audit. And I believe Don will say a few words about this one.
It is, yes. And that's why it's me, not Reem on this one. So this is done by Milton Keynes on the revs and bends. 3 systems: council tax, housing benefit and business rates, which all achieved either a satisfactory or a good assurance. I wasn't planning to say much more than that, other than take any questions.
Any questions, members? No. Okay, thank you. So we'll note the contents of the report, and there's no further action required at this time on it. Okay, so we now move to item 9, the draft annual governance statements. Can I ask Jack to give the presentation on this one, please? Thank you.
So the annual review of the Council's governance, risk management and internal control arrangements has been undertaken to support the draft annual governance statement for 25-26, which is Appendix A. In May 25, an addendum to delivering good governance in local government framework was published. And in that, it states that authorities should ensure that the AGS for 25-26 onwards complies with that guidance. As such, the draft AGS has been drafted in line with that addendum, which is also, I think, Appendix F in your packs. As part of our review, we've also updated the local code of governance, which is Appendix B, which sets out how governance principles are put into practice. The leader of the council will be asked to approve the code, having regards for any views expressed at this committee. This committee will be asked to approve the final AGS at the June meeting. However, the statement will remain under review until such time as the final internal and external audits reports have been received and finalised. Amendments may be made at that time, and necessary changes will be made, and they will then need to be approved back at this committee. So I'm happy to take any questions on the AGS.
Members, any questions, please? No? No? Okay. That was fairly straightforward then. Okay, we are... Oh, okay, Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, so I presume it's all the appendices as well that we're preparing, yeah. So which one am I looking at? Annual government statement draft, page, sorry, I printed it. I'm not quite sure what page that is, please, sorry.
So I found it.
That one, yeah, page,
Page 90 and 91.
yeah, thank you. So
91,
91,
yeah.
yeah, which was minor governance issues during the year. I just want to make a comment more than anything. It was disappointing to see that a procurement process that was undertaken on the Capitol Theatre did not involve the procurement team and was not signed off in the normal sort of fashion by procurement. So don't quite understand why that would have happened, because I thought that was required under regulation or whatever, that normally expected to go through procurement anyway. And why didn't it go through procurement, I suppose, is the question.
So it did go through a procurement process, but it was outsourced procurement process rather than our in-house procurement.
So the contractor did the procurement on our behalf. Did our procurement team sign off their procurement in any way, shape or form?
No.
No, okay, just wondered. Thank you. And then the one on the grant payments to the voluntary groups were not as set out in the council budget paper. This is because improved governance and application process had not been reflected in that budget process. Sorry, could you just explain that a little more simply to me? Is it what I think? But
Well, we have a pot of money for
Yeah.
for handing out for grants, and in the budget papers that went, our finance team put those numbers in allocations, but actually the process had changed. So housing communities changed the way that they do things. They now receive applications rather than just hand out dollops of 10,000 here or 5,000 there, which is actually a better way of doing it, isn't
agreed.
it? Because you get a proper application that is full, and therefore gives you something to monitor against as well. So actually the process has changed. Finance didn't quite keep up with that because we weren't aware of it was happening. It was happening almost at the same time, simultaneously.
It's fine.
But eventually we've got almost two things that we said we were going to do. We can't do both of them. So actually the one that we are now doing is the better one.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Any further questions, members?
Chairman, I wonder if I could just say something in regard to the new format that you've got there in front of you and the new process that's happened. There's an awful lot of work gone into that, and Jacqueline has been living and breathing that document for the last few months, and I think has done a really super job there, and hopefully that new format is much easier to understand for people as well. So I'd like to add my thank you to her for a sterling job there.
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10, report on the council's risk management month 10. So I believe the Director of Resources or Jack would give this. We'll go through this item, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we currently have 8 risks considered high on the corporate risk register, which is Appendix A. Since the last update, 1 new risk has been added in relation to artificial intelligence tools, reflecting both the opportunities and the risks associated with their increased use. 2 risks have increased in score. These are data security and cyber security. This is largely due to recent attacks on other local authority and wider global events. We also note a decrease in the risk rating for several risks. So 001, the benefit subsidy claim risk, which has reduced following an improved position, with the error rate projected at 0.23%, giving some headroom for additional errors being identified. We'll review this risk further once the year-end outrun is known. 009, the examination hearing for the local plan will recommence on the 21st of March, and that's reduced that risk for us. 018, which is the capital refurbishment project, where the contractors are now in control of the site and the project is on schedule. We did receive a question about the target impact score on that risk. Our aims with the controls and mitigation on that risk have been targeted at bringing down the likelihood scoring, as the financial impact of the programme delay is significant. That scoring is in line with our impact assessment document. We're going to review that target again prior to the next meeting, following on from that feedback as well. 022, which is relates to the removal of the water neutrality position statement, has reduced as the anticipated additional workload is remaining manageable at the moment. Whilst we would have to go into an exempt session for any technical details on 021, which is the exempt risk, I can update you that work commenced as planned on Monday the 22nd of March, and those works are due to complete next Tuesday, so that's the 24th of March. Inspections have been undertaken, confirming that we are happy with both the progress and the outcomes of these works. And importantly, there's been no cost to the council. We continue to monitor 2 risks on major planning decision thresholds and the potential impact of the Renters' Right Act as set out in 1.8 and 1.9. We're also monitoring the risk register in light of the current situation in the Middle East, and we'll bring further updates on this as required to the next committee meeting. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions on that one.
Thank you. Questions, members? Councillor Hogben?
I was just seeing number 23 there, the artificial intelligence. Obviously is new, and I think everyone is using it. I mean, I must have received about 4 replies in the last 2 days from officers, and you can just tell from the way they're worded and paragraph that it was all written by AI. You say there's a council policy on this. Certainly, as a councillor, I haven't been briefed or trained, and I've heard some absolute horror stories of. I was skiing last week, and there's a financial trader said that someone was doing their end of year annual accounts. This is a huge company, and that one of their staff just literally pasted it in a non-paid version of AI that wasn't a corporate version. It was just their personal version, and that was completely leaked on the internet within seconds. So I guess my question is, are councillors going to receive training on this? And it's probably more a question for the senior leadership team, probably for the director of resource, obviously coupled with the council policy. How are you stopping your staff members from making such silly mistakes? Is there a dedicated corporate version of AI that they are allowed to use that maintains sensitive and isn't leaked into the public domain? Thank you, Joe.
So that's what we're looking at the moment. So we're setting up what you might call an AI board, to making sure that it's got the right people across the whole organisation plugged into that. So legal, finance, etc., governance side of things. we've also got tech in there as well, haven't we? So there are some AI platforms that we are banning completely, so people won't be able to access those, depending on where they're based around the world as well. And we are trying to limit at the moment. We can't stop people ever doing anything, just as you can't stop people, printing. We're trying to limit and educate people not to put things out into the public domain that shouldn't go out there, which is why it's a risk at the moment, because we are learning as we go along. No one's an expert on AI at the moment, and we are going to have to find a path through this. You're right, people are starting to use it. I suspect, though, they're not probably using it quite in the way that the financial chap put stuff out there to summarise and just then use. I'm finding, anecdotally at least, amongst people, that we're writing reports and then, some phrases you write are a bit clunky, and you pop those into, an AI product and it tidies them up, or it makes them more professional, or it dampens it, or use a bit more empathy, and it tweaks what you've already done. I don't think we're at the stage where we are just dumping data into something and hoping for, an outcome and then passing it across. We are going to be looking, though, at whether we do have our own internal system, if you like, to do this. The difficulty being, of course, that we're only in existence for 2 more years, potentially, depending on the outcome of government and LGR. So piling into something now might not be the right thing to do anyway. And we need to make sure that whatever we do perhaps use is also applicable to other authorities, county, the other districts as well, and whatever the new authority might be thinking here. So we're not going to rush into anything. It's a risk, though, because we are acutely aware of the dangers of doing something silly and putting something out there. And it's that training and educating. I absolutely take on board the point that we need to also include counsellors in that. So a very good point. We will factor that into our thinking and roll something out. But we haven't done the sort of the basic training for officers yet, which is why it's a risk on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say that I've identified this as a problem previously. I've used AI in my work, and as an engineer, and it's been very useful. Gives me all the data, gives me the formulae, how it's worked out. But then it's done reports, and as far as I can see, it just lies. It's not picking up the basic information, so you have to be very, very careful. And I'm not too sure how quick we should be going into this minefield of AI, but that's my personal opinion anyway. Okay, any members' questions?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Hogben. I was going to raise that particular issue as well. Might I say that there are different levels of AI tools out there, and how deep or they dive, depending on how much you pay. But just to say that, yes, there are local authorities that are using AI tools currently. So, yeah, there is plenty. There's people in West Sussex using them, so you probably take some advice from them. I was going to come to the risk. Oh gosh, what number is it? The one on local plan, which is currently number 9, adopting an up-to-date local plan. I see we've that is now decreased down to medium. We've taken it away from high. I suppose the question I've got about adopting an up-to-date local plan, I suppose in terms of adopting a plan, now that Jonathan Ball's been appointed, it's probably more likely it's whether it's one that we like, if you see what I'm saying. So I suppose that the risk is actually about it happening rather than it's something that we're prepared to accommodate. Yeah, I just thought I would make that point. The other one I was going to talk about was recruitment, and I was going to mix that one up a little bit with the LGR one, because obviously they are combined, and I suspect that some of that recruitment issue is combined with the LGR. But within the LGR risk, we don't talk about the mayoral authority as well, because obviously the mayoral authority is being set up in the next couple of weeks with its first board meeting. And obviously there are elements of district responsibilities that will end up with the mayoral authority as well. So I just thought that LGR is not just, that's just unitary. We should be also referencing the mayoral local authority as well. So that was my point.
Yeah, we will take that on board. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Councillor Nigel Emery.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this probably comes under 003, rapidly rising costs and lower income, making balancing the budget more difficult. In light of the situation at the moment in terms of the global economy, and you may have seen this morning that HSBC predicted a global recession as likely to occur as a result of this. This, of course, could have significant impact on both employment levels and more broadly within the council and more broadly across the economy. I'm assuming that we are keeping a close eye on that. Well, obviously, one of the contradictory factors is that we now expect only one movement in interest rates downwards as opposed to the 3 which were originally expected. So at least we will see a less worsening effect on the interest earned on our deposits.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's obviously a complex area, isn't it? And which is why we review our risks regularly, and we will do so on the back of the latest information as we go along. But yes, a recession would hurt us. I don't know whether it would be enough to change the risk factor. Necessarily depends how it goes, and we'll update as we go along as we find out.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Emery. It is an issue. I suppose the good news is at least we'll receive a little bit more in treasury income, but will it negate those expenses which are more likely to be impacted? And certainly it's a concern just generally, but I think that particularly in any area that's impacted by oil, we should be looking at.
Yes, I think we're all going to be impacted in some way. We're all going to be impacted in some way because of the issues. Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We won't go into the exempt item, it's on this. Yeah, this item as a whole is for noting and for our assurance so we're satisfied with the contents. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 11, which is 2024-25 housing benefits audit. Could I ask the Director of Resources to give a presentation?
Of course, it'll be quite short because I sort of verbally updated you in December when we last met. The good news that from our 24-25 audit of the housing benefit claim, we hadn't lost any subsidy, which is the first time in, I think it was 3 or so years. So it's good news. This is just the written report confirming that. I think it shows, doesn't it, the hard work that revenues and benefits have really put into improving the quality within their service. It's been a long and slow process. It's like turning around an oil tanker, although perhaps not the phrase to be using at the moment. I think we shouldn't be complacent though, because it only takes one big error found extrapolated to throw us over the edge, which is why it's still as a red risk. When we get to the outturn, we may reconsider that risk factor to just pull it down a notch, because I think we are travelling in the right direction, which is basically what the report says.
Any questions, members? Independent member Dave Cornfield.
Just one quick one. Just the reserve, the 0.9 million reserve. It seemed quite high in comparison to historic reserves that have been put up there, or actual expenses that you've incurred as a result of this. What was the background behind that level of reserve going forward?
So the high level of reserve was to cover various things. So it's not just about the loss of subsidy. It would cover if we needed more money to pump into the service to try and turn that quality around. It's there to cover our sort of housing benefit claim, if you like, as well, because sometimes government caps the amount of subsidy that we can actually claim. And therefore there's a loss on just doing the transaction for government. So all those things combined, we set aside, a fairly significant amount. We can now review that perhaps in light of not needing that if we are to continue not losing subsidy in this way. But I think, it's been there as a safety net, as we should have for this area, because, this sort of area can cost authorities a lot of money, and it is doing as well. We've budgeted for it in the revenue side of things, but if something comes along, having that size of backing to be able to not hit the taxpayer in one hit in the INE is a useful tool to protect us. So we will review it now in terms of the size. It could be that we could release some of that elsewhere for something else. Yeah, correct, yes, we will. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Okay, thank you. So the committee is recommended to note and be satisfied that A, no subsidy has been lost in the audit of the 2024-25 housing benefit claim, and B, continuing measures are being taken to improve the process and reduce error rates in the future. We are in quite a good position, I think, at the moment. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to agenda item 12, Treasury Management and Prudential Indicators, Quarter 3 Report, 2025 to 2026. Sam will be giving me a report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So this report was circulated to members of the committee in February. It's the, as it says, the Quarter 3 report. It's included on the next available agenda for the committee. And I trust you've all read it. If you have any questions, let me know.
Hey, Sam, sorry. One question from me. So the forecasted spend, capital spend is down by about 4.2 million. Are we expecting that spend to now occur in 26 through 27 financial year, or are we kind of assuming that that's done and won't be spent?
So unspent capital budget is carried over into the next financial year, so that will knock on into next year.
Okay, so the work will actually
Yes.
be taking place?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Probably could have phrased my question clearly.
Councillor Dennis.
Yes, I was going to ask about, I don't know what page it is. It's further on. Sorry, I wrote some notes and I haven't referenced them to it. It's around the income from Swan Walk and the Forum. It's on this document, isn't it, somewhere? Pretty sure it is, but I can't remember exactly where. So bear with me. There's a problem with reviewing things online and writing the notes in a separate book. And the question I had about it is I noticed that we'd done better with our revenue than we originally anticipated. And I suppose the question I had was, why was that? I think it was about 100 and something better. And was that due to the fact that this was now now being leased as part of that Swan Walk Forum piece? This building was being leased by HDC. No? Have I got the wrong end of the stick?
So the forum is to do with the letting of Go Outdoors. I think they took on the additional unit there, and
right, okay.
they had a rent-free period which came to an end, and that wasn't included in the budget. So
that was actually,
yeah. We used the budget for the indicator, and obviously
I found it.
received more income.
Just found it as you told me. 7.1 it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 193,000 was primarily down to the letting of that particular unit, was it? Right, that's good. Thank you.
And Swan Walk as well, that has obviously been taken over by new owners, and that the reports from them seem to be suggesting that it's going well. So
Okay.
Any further questions, members?
No.
I'll just make one comment. So Appendix A is the economic background to quarter three, and this was written before, obviously before the problems which we are now experiencing, and obviously the officers will be keeping a careful eye on what's going on here. So the committee is recommended to note to be satisfied with the position in the third quarter. I take it as read. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 13, which is updates to accounting policies for production of 2025-2026 statement of accounts. And Sam.
I was just thinking 13 is unlucky for some. This report provides an overview of the key updates of accounting policies when we start preparing the 25-26 accounts. There are two policy changes, and I say policy lightly because one is a code change. The first is the update to the wording which relates to pooled funds. So the override actually ended on the 1st of April 2024, so it impacted 24-25. But for pooled funds purchased after April 24, we have to take any gains or losses on those investments into our general fund. And to mitigate the volatility, which I'm sure we'll talk about, we'll create an earmarked reserve with any gains to offset any future losses. But as at the 28th of February, the gains on the investment totaled to 84,000. Sorry, but 28th of February is a significant date when the world changed. So we'll see. And then the second one is the Code of Practice. So the SIPFA Code of Practice has updated its approach to non-investment property revaluation from April 26. So instead of relying solely on the 5-year valuation cycle, we can now use indexation each year to ensure that the assets shown in the accounts are materially up to date. This, as explained in the paper, will assess the materiality of any changes and only update valuations when required, and supporting papers will be made available to external audit. Any questions on those?
Councillor Dennis.
That last one felt a little bit vague, and you're going to come back to us on it. In terms of policy, do you see what I'm saying? Because it does sound a bit like you can do it every year if you want to, but we'll keep an eye on it, and if we need to, we will.
We have to perform the valuation each year, and if it's material, and our material is about 1.5, so if the transaction is the difference between the two, then we have to put that through the accounts, and if it isn't, then we can decide we can still do it.
And the policy decides.
Yes,
Right, okay,
yeah.
that's fine. Sounded a little bit if and whatever. Yeah, okay, no, thank you.
Any further questions, members? That was the last item on the agenda, except for urgent business. I have no urgent business. No one else? Okay, so bring the meeting to a close at 18:29, so just under 1 hour. Thank you very much.